FPL managers have lost their minds selling Cole Palmer going into game week 27, and I'm going to talk about exactly why alongside the best players for you to buy going into this midweek deadline. So as always, you look forward to today's video. Make sure you do drop a like, aim for 300 on this video, and of course, if you haven't already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, I want to talk about Cole Palmer because currently he's the fourth most sold player going into game week 27, and I think it's around 85,000 transfers out. And let's be honest, between now and the Tuesday deadline, that is going to surpass 100,000 transfers out. Now, I don't want to be rude at all, but I think it's crazy selling Cole Palmer going into game week 27. So look, a few things and the reasons why managers are selling Palmer. 4 blanks in the last 5 game weeks is not good, especially for a player at 11.1 million. I mean, that is a lot of your team budget that is being invested in a player like Cole Palmer. And also, there's just a total loss of faith in Chelsea as a team. At the start of the season, I think we all knew that attacking-wise, they were great under Maresca and goals were always going to happen. But now when you watch Chelsea, they look so blunt in the final third, and you don't really think they ever have a scoreline in them to score 3 or 4 goals. Hence why Cole Palmer doesn't really become a fantastic FPL option over those last 5 game weeks. And I agree, Palmer, the faith that we have in him in Chelsea has definitely declined. But also we need to remember a few really big things going into game week 27. So firstly here, I've put the underlying numbers. Now, yes, they have dropped off a cliff over the last few game weeks, and that is basically in line with the performances that we've seen from Chelsea. But we have to remember sometimes that fixtures outweigh form. And these 2 fixtures coming up for Chelsea are just the best that you could possibly ask for. Southampton at home, a team that have been absolutely horrid over the last few weeks. We saw 4 goals conceded once again against Brighton. If it wasn't for Ramsdale performing some heroic saves, it could have been even more in that game. And then in game week 28, a team possibly even worse at home against Leicester. I understand the loss of faith in Cole Palmer in Chelsea, but sometimes the fixtures are just too good to ignore. And I think that is a classic case right now. Now, the other big positive regarding Palmer is if you're chasing rank right now, you're chasing mini leagues. Of course, Mo Salah is at home against Newcastle, but this could be the ultimate differential captain. In a week where managers are selling Cole Palmer, you can double down and put the captaincy on him. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not doing it myself. I don't think there is enough trust right now in Chelsea and Palmer to do so, and Mo Salah is just inevitable. But if you want a differential captain in a game week like this, I think Cole Palmer is your man. Historically, we have seen in a Chelsea shirt that he is great. I know the last few weeks have been poor, but would you be surprised if he did rock up and get a 20-pointer against Southampton? I wouldn't be personally. Maybe that's a little bit of bias there. So for me, you keep Cole Palmer for the next 2 game weeks. However, I do think from game week 29 onwards, there is an argument to potentially sell him. Arsenal away is tricky. Spurs with all their players back will be tough. Brentford away in game week 31 will not be easy at all for Chelsea. And then Ipswich at home in game week 32. But can you really justify keeping him just for that one fixture in isolation? I don't think you can. So he's a keep. Keep him in your teams, and then game week 29, you can reassess and decide whether you want to sell him. So one of the most bought players going into game week 27 is going to be Bowen after scoring that goal against Arsenal in game week 26, and a player that a lot of managers are selling from Cole Palmer to get to, and I totally understand it because at his price of 7.3 million, he is great FPL value, and I do have him as a buy for today's video. The thing about Bowen right now, of course, is because we've had a managerial change, I've put some underlying numbers here like 0.3 expected goals per 90, 0.23 expected assists, but things have changed since the previous manager and now Graham Potter. We're seeing Bowen is playing almost as a 9 at times or as a split forward, so we can't really take too much information from the time under Graham Potter so far. The things that we know, 2 goals in the last 3 league matches, and Bowen has looked really good in those games. He always looks dangerous whenever he is in those final third areas. It is quite scary when you watch West Ham not being a Jarrod Bowen owner at times. And what we have to understand as well is that they have a brilliant game week 27 fixture at home against Leicester. I spoke about Leicester defensively so poor, and I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham were to score a few goals against them. I don't look at this Graham Potter team right now and think that they're going to score 4 or 5 goals, but I do think that the goals are sometimes a little bit predictable, and if they are going to get 2 or 3 against Leicester, then you can almost guarantee there's going to be some sort of involvement from Jarrod Bowen. And the huge factor as well is that Mateta looks like he could be out for up to 3 or 4 weeks. That means that Bowen is now officially on penalties. I don't see anybody displacing him as the penalty taker in this team. So when I'm paying 7.3 million, if we think about it, you got Brian Mbeumo slightly more expensive, but on penalties, and we got cheaper options like Kluivert on penalties. Now that Bowen is on penalties for the next month, for example, that makes him an even better option. And really, if I'm paying this much for Bowen, I want him to be on penalties. So that is a real plus. A couple of downsides. Now, I spoke about a few players. Mbeumo slightly more expensive, slightly cheaper. We got the Bournemouth midfielders. It's a really competitive price range. And I do think Bowen's quite a difficult buy because let's say your midfield right now is Salah, Palmer, Mbeumo and double Bournemouth midfield or something along those lines. You're not really going to be selling, well, I personally don't suggest selling Palmer or Salah or Mbeumo to get there. So really you have to find the funds available to upgrade one of your cheaper midfielders. And would I right now sell a Bournemouth midfielder to buy Bowen? Probably not unless you were really in a luxurious position. And also I would say the fixtures long term are quite tricky. Now, he has a game in game week 29 for those that are not free hitting. That's great. Away against Everton, but it's not a fantastic fixture. And then we've got tricky games away against Bournemouth. Sorry, at home against Bournemouth, away against Wolves, away against Liverpool. So I don't think the fixtures are there to look at and think, oh my God, I need Bowen. It very much is a case of this game week in isolation, but all it takes is one game week and you get the huge returns. Sometimes it can pay off. So my thought process right now is that if you can get to Bowen as a luxury move, I think he's great for this game week. He really could be the differential pick of the week. Otherwise, I just don't think I can sit here and suggest selling any of the players that I mentioned to bring him in for a one game week in isolation pick. So great buy if you can get there. Otherwise, I think you could probably avoid. Now, of course, in today's video, we got to talk about the big guns, and those are going to be Cunha and Mateta up front. They have been fantastic over the last few weeks. Mateta in particular, over the last couple of months, really. And I honestly think anybody that went there has had an absolute masterstroke because he has just been the main man in this Crystal Palace team each and every game week. Anybody that saw that run that he set up Munoz for was just ridiculous. He's in the top of his game, and we know Cunha has just been fantastic throughout the season, aside from obviously the injury that he picked up and the slight issues he had in the background with the manager, but it looks like everything is resolved now under Vitor Pereira. So I think it's really interesting right now, Cunha versus Mateta, because whatever situation you're in, both are very, very appealing. And I want to get to kind of a conclusion here on which one should be the priority for your teams. So in terms of the underlying numbers, Mateta leading the way for expected goals per 90, and that shouldn't come as a surprise for anybody that's been watching Crystal Palace. Very much over the last season, it was Elise, Eze and Mateta. This season, it literally is just Mateta doing all the business for them. And everything that good happens through him. So it is the Mateta team. However, someone like a Cunha is just fantastic for getting points in different avenues. So, of course, we know he's the penalty taker. He is absolutely the creative force in this team. You can see that with the underlying numbers here, where he basically doubles anything that Mateta produces. 0.31 expected assists, 1.84 attempted assists, and even the shots per 90 really surprisingly high at 3.54. So he's basically doing all the good stuff that you want from a forward. And what that means is any sort of attack and return, whether it be an assist or a goal, he basically is picking up top bonus or 2 bonus, which makes him a 9-point magnet each and every game week, which is fantastic. Now, I think both are brilliant buys, but it all comes down to your current strategy, which is really important to start laying out what you want to do. So if you're in a position right now where you're looking to free hit in game week 29, I think it's really easy. You just bring in Mateta. Villa at home, I don't think is a fixture you should be scared about attacking returns. And then you get the Ipswich game. Then in game week 29, you free hit him out, and then you have him back for game week 30 away against Southampton. And then whatever your strategy afterwards is, you could keep him. Brighton at home, great, and then a double game week in 32. Or you go for a wild card around that period, whatever is down to your team. Otherwise, if you're like my team right now and you're looking to not free hit in game week 29, then I think Cunha is the answer for your team. So 2 home games, I would argue they're probably similar-ish to that of Palace's fixtures. Fulham at home, tricky. Everton at home, tricky. But both teams I think Cunha can deliver in. And then they've got the money fixture away against Southampton in game week 29. It feels quite scary, the prospect of not owning Cunha in that specific game week. And then after that, he is a great hold. West Ham at home, Ipswich away, even Spurs at home in game week 32. So I think it's quite clear right now. If you're free hitting in game week 29, Mateta is just a fantastic buy. Otherwise, if you're looking to run through game week 29, then Cunha's your man, because I think in 29, a very difficult player not to own in your teams. Let me know your favourite one in the comment section. So some other popular players going into game week 27 is going to be the Aston Villa pair in Asensio and Marcus Rashford. Asensio right now the 5th most bought player and Rashford the 6th. So it looks like we have a new dynamic in this Aston Villa attack. Whereas over the last 25, 26 game weeks, it's been Morgan Rogers in that Aston Villa midfield and pretty much no one else. We're kind of blessed right now with loads of different options available to us. And right now, Asensio being priced at 6 million, Marcus Rashford at 6.7 million. They are more expensive than Morgan Rogers, but when I just say those names out loud, they sound way more exciting to own than that of Morgan Rogers, even though he has been brilliant. And of course, it is worth noting Morgan Rogers did go off with a slight knock. And with this fixture being midweek, I understand why some managers are jumping off Morgan Rogers and maybe even looking to just go sideways to one of these two. So we need to take a look at what we have seen so far in an Aston Villa shirt, and I have to reiterate this. They literally have only played 3 matches. So I've put underlying data here from game week 25 to game week 26, but of course, game week 25 was a double game week for both of them. So they have played very limited minutes, and I've just put the heat maps up here for the most recent game against Chelsea, but we can come to some sort of conclusions nonetheless. So when we take a look at the numbers so far, again, these are so limited minutes. Expected goals per 90, Asensio looking fantastic at 0.58 compared to Marcus Rashford's 0.17. But what is really impressive from both of these players is the shot volume that they generated in both games. 3.41 shots for Asensio, 3.96 shots for Rashford. However, I've got to state, there is real big game state in these data numbers because they played up against an Ipswich team that were down to 10 men for quite a large time in that game. So naturally, Aston Villa were dominating that game in the second half. They had all the dominance in the final third, and naturally there was lots of shots. Anybody that remembers that game, the keeper had a worldie. So again, very difficult, and hence why I want to tread carefully when I'm recommending any sort of players here, because we are looking at such limited data. In terms of creativity, though, surprisingly, Rashford's been putting up brilliant numbers in this team. So Asensio's been the goal scorer, Marcus Rashford has been the creator. But when we take a look at heat maps here, this is maybe something that we can have a bit more of a understanding of what the players could possibly create in future game weeks. So here we've got the starting lineup for Aston Villa up against Chelsea, and the number 21 there is Marco Asensio. So what we saw with Emery in this game was very narrow midfield. We had McGinn and Tielemans playing as a double pivot, Asensio playing in the number 10, Morgan Rogers playing off the right, but actually the number 27 came quite narrow and almost made a twin 10 position, with Matty Cash basically being the bombing on fullback that probably plays to his strengths. Jacob Ramsey playing off the left wing, much more as a winger traditionally, and then Watkins down the middle. So Rogers, even though he played off the right, drifted into central areas, but it was important to note that you can see with the heat map here, Asensio very central, and importantly also taking set pieces off one of the sides. When we take a look at Marcus Rashford, now he did come on as a substitute in the second half with the injury to Jacob Ramsey, and that is going to enhance Rashford's game time going forward. You can see here much more of a traditional winger, but very, very high up in his touches and stretching the play for Aston Villa. So if this is anything to go by right now, and I think we are going to see enhanced minutes for both Asensio and Marcus Rashford going forward, I just think they're bringing him in, they're going to play. I think Asensio is more than likely going to continue in that number 10 role, and Marcus Rashford playing as a traditional left winger. I'm really excited what I'm seeing from both of these players. Now, the big downside regarding them, and probably why I do think they are in a void, are the fixtures coming up. Now, even if you are free hitting in game week 29, because if you are not free hitting in 29, you have to completely avoid Aston Villa. They are not worth you buying. Palace away and Brentford away are just not fixtures to attack. And then, of course, they blank in 29. So don't buy them. But if you're looking to free hit in game week 29, I would still ask the question, are they really worth buying? I think those are two tricky games. Then they got Brighton away in game week 30 and then Nottingham Forest in game week 31. So my opinion is this. I still think it's a wait and see on these. We have to remember Aston Villa still have Champions League, which always causes a bit of problems with their Premier League results. So I think if you haven't bought one of these right now, I would avoid them. Whatever your strategy is, avoid them. I don't see the upside being there. And I think from game week 32 onwards, then we maybe can reassess and look to buy. But as of now, this is an avoid. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Which one would you pick? If it was me and I had to pick one, I probably would lean towards Asensio at the time of recording. Yes guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's video. I really hope it has provided some value. Now, of course, it is a Tuesday deadline, hence why we had a video put up last night, which were my transfer plans. Make sure you do check that out. Today's video and early tomorrow morning, I will be putting my team selection up because, of course, tomorrow is the deadline. So if you want to stick around for all of that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. It's always massively appreciated. And a massive shout out to you guys for making the channel hit 20k. Wouldn't be anything without you guys. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please do consider dropping a like. Any questions, pop them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. Have an amazing day. Take care. See you real soon. Cheers.